Ben Mala did the video, the big hurricane video. Where is it? There it is. Ben Mala, he did the big hurricane video. Everybody's been waiting on that Mala hurricane video. The big Ben Mala. Courtesy of NOAA, or NOAA, the National Atmospheric Administration. Or, sorry, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Atmospheric. I used to check NOAA every day when I lived down in Tennessee. And I remember learning a lot about hurricanes when I was younger. They don't just affect Florida and the lower states. That when it hits North America, it affects not only a lot of different states in the U.S., but also it affects Canada. There were the two recently. We were affected by the Fiona and then Ian. Fiona hit Canada and it was devastating, and then we've seen the effects of that, and then which has continued to be devastating all the way up. First it was Florida, then it was South Carolina, and then now New Jersey and whatnot. New Jersey's getting a lot is flooding now. All the way up, all the states, all the way up that whole coast, and it hit the Fort Myers, and then it went all the way up the east coast of the United States and flooded it all out. A lot of flooding and winds, a lot of flooding and winds and storm surge. Unbelievable storm surge all the way through any coastal areas. Not just Fort Myers Beach and all that. Even Cape Coral and the surrounding areas were without power still with 4 days, 5 days. And then all the way up the East Coast, you were dealing with tons of flooding and storm surge, really high storm surge, all the way up even after it made initial landfall. So it's been a pretty active hurricane season. Then there was another one that they announced, and then I remember even before that there was a couple light tropical depressionary ones or what have you that hit Cal Baja Peninsula, and then it started ramping up. And I seen it ramp up pretty quickly. It started out with one that was sort of an aggressive tropical storm. It was quick to move. It was almost, you could see that it was a young tropical storm. It wasn't that there was going to be some much more mature storms to come, quite possibly, and that's what happened. There was some much more mature storms that came. But it was that sort of a traditional period of time that it usually did happen every 15 or so years when we do get sort of one of these powerful, very powerful hurricanes. They had one similar to that one just not too long ago in that same area on a certain schedule, so they know how to deal with it. We see with Florida, they know how to deal with it now. They've learned over the years how they deal with it. and they're quick to clean up and rebuild. And within 1 year or 2 years, it's like nothing ever happened. They got everything rebuilt. But this one, the storm surge was unbelievable. There was areas that I used to walk on land. They forecasted this on CNN and whatnot years ago that these areas in history, Florida used to be underwater completely all the way to Tennessee. That is the historicals that Florida all the way up to Tennessee used to be underwater. They have artifacts and whatnot that those areas that they potentially could be underwater again in the future, what have you. They're like sort of these areas that are they go underwater and then they're back above water. Sometimes they could go within the next couple hundred years. They're saying that it could be underwater more frequently than not, or all that. You know what I mean? It's under sea level. Like right now, we're in a position where a lot of people are going to have their homes there for hundreds of years and be fine. But eventually, they're saying it may go back to the time where there is a lot of water that comes up. Sometimes it doesn't come up as often. I think it's sort of like every 15 or so years, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Like every 15 or 20 years. So eventually, and I think about 1,000 years or about 3,000 years or something, maybe 5,000, you could see it potentially be underwater again in 5,000 years or something like that. If the Earth is still around the way it is now. There used to be water all the way up to Tennessee. Uh, they have shells and all that. Let me see. I can't remember. It's in some historical book that I read, or not a historical book, but on a documentary or something about how the continent. Something about how there used to be water all the way up the continent or something like that. They used to cover. I don't know where I heard that, but it was some sort of years ago or something like that. That's what they had said. That thousands of years ago, before they even had anybody talk about it on video or anything, they had to find artifacts or whatnot in the sand. They would find artifacts in the sand in certain areas or what have you, like arrowheads and whatnot. I'm not sure. I think somebody might have lied to me and said that whole story. It might have been somebody trying to screw up that whole thing. But anyway, I don't know. I'm not sure. But they found arrowheads all the way in Tennessee and whatnot and all that. But then down below the sea level, uh, you got a lot of flooding. There was even flooding. Oh, they have a lot of they have floods, flash floods, and floods that can happen in Tennessee where certain areas, 1 minute it's like a normal dry land area, and the next minute you've got flash flood warnings and really high flooding and all that. We don't have that very much up here in Canada, flash flooding. That's more of a thing down once you go down south. We have a lot of snow, and you can have flooding with the snow, I guess. But well, yeah, no, wait, there's flash floods here too. They get flash floods here in Canada. You can get flash floods up here in Canada too. Flash floods, it's not a good thing. Yeah, watch out for the flash flood and all that. See, I've remained pretty smart from staying away any areas that had any flash floods, but you never know. It's a luck thing sometimes. You never know what area is going to have a flash flood sometimes. There's areas more prone to flash flooding that have had flash flooding a lot. Like in Tennessee, There was areas that were known to be flash flood areas. Oh, that's the holler. They get flash floods in the holler and all that. So my dad, that's why my dad got his property so cheap. He was in a big time flash flood area. But the property he had was pretty nice, but he still could have got hit by a flood for sure. Because the rich people in Tennessee, they live on the hills and all that, on top of the hills and all that, or whatever. Same within Florida. Even in Florida, you seen that because they put the houses on top of the hill, and then all the rest of the whole streets flood, and their house is still sitting on top of the hill. And then eventually all that flood water goes down. It's like a ritual. It's like a big ritual down in Florida. They put their cars in the garage. It sits on top of the hill. The really more wealthier ones with the house on the hill, and then they wait for the floodwaters to go down, and then you got 15 years of good weather again. And then maybe in 20 years or something, there's going to be another big flood and all that. It's part of the ritual. I got to go down there and experience it when I was a kid. I got to be a Floridian just like everyone else was. I was a dual citizen. I went to school. I was even down there for Hurricane Charlie. And that's when they said, Tom, do you want to be an American citizen or do you want to be a Canadian still? I said, I just can't give up my Canadian citizenship. I said, I'm just not the type of person that could do this every 15 years. So I said, I have to go back to Canada. So because they said if you're going to stay in America, you have to throw away your Canadian citizenship like you hate all your family in Canada. They were trying to trick me. I said, hell no. Why would I ever go against my own family? As much as I love the United States, I love the U.S. I have family all in the U.S., but I have family in Canada. I'm not going to renounce any citizenship. That was the best decision we ever made. There were people that stayed in Florida. They were really well. They got everything they deserved there in Florida. Some of them. There was that Justin Batdorf. He's famous for home invasions. They protect really bad people down there. He broke into my house with his buddies, stole my Xbox, all that. And they've gotten nothing but the bad end of the stick for that. So anyways, have fun rebuilding. It ain't nothing against you. We love Florida. But obviously, the hurricane had some decisions to make, and its decision was to strike Florida. And Florida got struck by a hurricane. Fort Myers. But luckily, it only did hit the beach, really. It only hit the beach, really. But I really feel bad for New Jersey. I feel bad for New Jersey, and I feel bad for South Carolina because those were two places that I even was a big fan of. Even my mom went down to South Carolina and all that. Like South Carolina, I was a big fan. That's where Kid Behind the Camera is. But unfortunately, yeah, Florida got hit in that same area. So did South Carolina. They got hit real bad. All the way up. We'll see if it keeps going. I can't believe it just keeps going. All I see is new little news. I know the news people are making big money off of this one. So they're going to make all their money back. FEMA's going to reconstruct, and they're going to make all their money back with all these little news stories and all that they got coming out. But man, it just keeps rolling. The devil's going the opposite way. Instead of going to Georgia, he's going all the way up, and he just keeps rolling up. We might even see rain here in Canada. There was rain here in Canada from the last Atlantic hurricane. Well, it started out as a Gulf of Mexico. It started out as the Gulf and all that and everything. I'm not even sure where Ian came from. Where did it originate? All we remember is where it hit. We don't remember where it originated. When was this? 3 years ago. There's been a couple different Ians. but none as memorable as the Ian of 2022. Category 5 Ian, is this it? Look at the way it swooped and hit Florida. It's almost like it's attracted to over there. It came from that. I think this was it. Came from that. No, that's 3 years ago. Another one that hit the same area. Whoa, that Southwest Florida gets hit a lot by hurricanes. I remember I used to live down there. I didn't know it got hit that much. 3 years ago, there was another one, Ian or whatever. 2016, Tropical Storm Ian. Hurricane Ian. Ida. I think I remember this Ida. Yeah. These hurricanes get famous all the way even in it's not just in the United States or in Florida or other places that Texas or Louisiana or anything like that where they get famous, but I never got that Texas. I always thought Texas hung out itself right here, but it doesn't. It's a part of Mexico there, and I never understood that. But man, what a good Mexican dish! Now I understand it with the Rio Grande and the Texas food or whatever, because you're right there on the border with Mexico. I never got that. I never even got to go to Mexico, but I got to not meet. I got to meet Texas's best guy, Jeremy Leutner. I'd call him number one in Texas. He's Jeremy Leutner's number one. He's the number one best guy in Texas. A lot of different ones. Alicia, 1983, all the way even going back. And then there's them tornadoes. That was a big thing back then. They used to even have a ride at the Universal Studios down in Florida. There was the movie. Everybody watched the movie. It was Twister the movie. And then by the time you watched the movie, you had made it down to Florida to go on this Twister ride. It was unbelievable. And then I seen the Twister, and it was scary. And then you'd experience the actual Twister. Wherever you were, there was going to be some. I mean, we had twisters down in Florida, water spouts, and then there was one that actually turned into a twister. And then there was twisters for the 2008 outbreak when I was in Tennessee. The twister, they have those outbreaks every once in a while. They're outbreaks from Arkansas to Tennessee up to Kentucky. Even got, and then there's other ones, and then you learn about. And then if you're in a different area, what about earthquakes? Earthquakes are a big thing. Well, no, I like we had, even in Canada, we had earthquake preparedness or whatever. But in California, their buildings and all that are like structured to deal with the movements of the ground. We've gotten to quite a few earthquakes here in where I live here in Ontario. You hear it, feel it every once in a while. Like it's been once or twice or three times this year. It's the ground is sort of like it's like it's sort of like dropping, losing, sort of like, I don't know, the building is moving and the ground is moving, sort of losing foundation. They spent a lot of money building this building, but I think the foundation's going bad. But it's a good building, and I think will be. But you can feel it moving every once in a while. The ground, it feels like it's dropping or something like that, kind of like this. Yeah. That can happen very rarely.